podcast that you're listening to is being presented to you with the cooperation of the SJ Network. If you're a person who needs a publicist and you want to appear on podcasts, contact Stephen Joyner at s-j-network.com. Let's get on with the show.
I didn't know you were once a photographer.
It didn't last very long. I got fired at my first job, photographing a vegan wedding.
How did you get fired?
Apparently, they got very upset when I asked them to say cheese.
Speaking of photography, let's have a listen to today's interview with professional photographer, Edward Dose.
I think I can focus for that.
Attention, rebels of the Sherpalution. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. We would like to give you a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial simply by heading to www.audibletrial.com/Sherpa. There are over 180,000 titles of audiobooks and podcasts, including this one, to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. And now, the one and only Mr. Bruce will lead you into the Sherpa Chalet. As a reminder, on Fridays, ladies drink free at the Sherpa Chalet nightclub, provided that you are a Lady Wildebeest.
Coming to you from Sherpa Chalet in beautiful downtown Mount Podcastia, it's time for entertainment interviews in the Sherpa screening room. Grab an aisle seat and a bucket of popcorn, but don't crunch too loud or you'll miss the show. Now, here's your host, Jim, the podcast Sherpa.
Hello there, rebels of the Sherpalution. Welcome to the Sherpa Screening Room, a presentation of Too Many Podcasts. And if this is the Sherpa Screening Room, then I must be Jim the Podcast Sherpa. Must I? Let me see. Wait, let me check the tag inside my shirt. Yep, I am definitely Jim the Podcast Sherpa, welcoming you to the show. And for those of you who've never been here, these are the interviews that I get to have with folks who aren't necessarily podcasters, but they have a place somewhere in the entertainment world. And today's guest, well, there's a little story behind it. So let me start there. Most of my assignments come from, of course, the publicist extraordinaire, Stephen Joyner. And one day we were talking on the phone, as we usually are. And he said, "Hey, Jim, I got a question for you." I said, "Yes." And he said, "You like classic rock, right?" And I said, "Sure." He said, "How would you like to talk to a guy who has photographed over 100 classic rock stars?" And of course, for me, the only response to that is, "Yes, please." So that's what I got to do. And this gentleman's name is Edward Dose. He lives on the West Coast of the United States. This interview is probably one of my favorites. I probably could have spoken to him for another hour, asking him every little thing. But the time that we had was really interesting, and I didn't want to take up too much of his time. He definitely lays out rock photography 101, if you want to give it a name. A really fascinating guy and a lot of great stories and wonderful encounters. It's an interesting story of how he got into the business and what he does now. And he's got a website that if you're a fan of classic rock or just photography, this is a website that you definitely want to get lost in if you truly appreciate the art of photography. The pictures are just incredible. And I definitely got lost looking at all the pictures that he's taken. It is really just amazing stuff. We get to talk about his website and his career. And I had so much fun talking to him. This is definitely a favorite. Check out my interview now with Mr. Edward Dose, the Rocktographer. Hello there, rebels. We are in the dark room with my guest today. He refers to himself as a Rocktographer. I like that term. Never heard it before. And rightfully so. This gentleman has photographed probably hundreds of rock stars. And not only does he do rock stars, he does portraits and children and events and animals. He is a multi-talented third-generation photographer. And he's here to talk about his work and a little bit about photography. I'm going to get to know him. And he is the creator of St. Vitus Studios. Yep. His name is Edward Dose. Ed, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Jim. I appreciate it. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well.
Nice.
Now, you had an interesting start. I mean, photography was always your hobby, but you were going to college for something completely different, right?
Yeah, I went to college for international business with a minor in Japanese, and then went to Harvard and studied quantum electrodynamics and accounting and business through them, and then went back to Arizona and went to University of Arizona, where my dad was basically dying of cancer, and went back to be near him and just kind of hung out and did the international business and computer graphics and things like that. So I'm kind of a well-rounded idiot, if with an education that means absolutely nothing to anybody. So, and I started out, when I started out, I wanted to be a rock star or an actor. And just couldn't get the acting thing. I've been in like 33 movies, but I couldn't get any speaking parts. So it just kind of frustrated me. And then the rock star thing, I ran away to Hollywood at one point and wanted to be a rock star, but I can't sing and I can't write music. And so that didn't go anywhere. And I just figured that I was better with a camera than anything else, and just started taking pictures. My first job as a photographer really was working with Mr. Nicks, Stevie Nicks' dad, down in Tempe, Arizona at Compton Terrace. He knew that Steven Tyler was my hero, and he told me to take pictures of him all day and babysit him, basically. So I got to spend the entire day with Steven Tyler and take a bunch of pictures, and it was great. And since then I started taking pictures of everybody that came into town. And I mean, I could go through the list, but the list is hundreds of people. And I never really thought that anybody'd want to see my photography except me. So I really didn't save anything. This was back in 35 millimeter film. So the negatives are somewhere in a box somewhere. I have no idea where they're at, but, people like the Scorpions and David Bowie and Queen and all these people like that. And I had no idea that people wanted to see my pictures like I do until like the last 4 years is when I started to really pay attention to everything and put everything on digital and put it online and things like that. And then all of a sudden people are like, where the hell did you come from? And it's like, well, I've been doing this for, close to 40 years. And, I just started paying attention to it and started putting everything online 4 years ago. So, but here in Seattle, everybody was like, where did you come from? I mean, you started taking these fantastic pictures, and you were no one. And I'm like, well, I've been doing this for a while. So, it kind of shocked people, So,
I think anybody that's a lover of classic rock, I think your pictures basically sum up their playlist.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the cool thing is I got to meet a lot of the people, especially when I worked for Mr. Nicks. I was too young to get paid. So he said that one of the things that he would do is introduce me to everybody that came in. And I met everybody, Ronnie James Dio, Steven Tyler, Stevie Nicks, everybody, just everybody. And one of my friends now is Roger Fisher, who's the original guitarist for Heart, and he comes over to the studio a lot and hangs out. And he says, "Hey Ed, I brought you a bottle of whiskey," and then he sits there and drinks it all, and then he gets back in his Tesla and pushes a button that says home, and he drives home. So it's kind of funny. And then I've got an empty bottle of whiskey that Roger Fisher drank, so it's pretty funny.
That's definitely a unique way to spend an afternoon.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, it very much is, because, talking to these guys, everybody keeps asking me what certain people are like. There are two different times where you can talk to people: before the show and after the show. And before the show, it's like sports people that, say, I'm in the zone. And they don't hear or really realize anything else is going on except for the ball game. And a lot of people, let's take Steven Tyler, for instance. People have said, that guy's an asshole. And he's not. He was like an instant brother to me. Really super nice, very nice. We had a lot of fun riding around on ATCs and everything. But people talk to him before the show or catch him before the show, and he's like, focused on what he's got to do.
Right.
And then, those people that talk to him afterwards say, or, before the show, oh, he's a jerk, and then people talk to him afterwards and he's like real relaxed and it's over the show's over. And, those people are like, oh, he's a great guy, so you get two different things. But you can pretty much tell that all the artists pretty much, not all of them do it, but I would say most of them do it, that they're tunnel visioned or focused on the show. And they don't really hear you. You could say whatever, the room's on fire, and they'd be like, okay, yeah, whatever, and it just doesn't faze them because they're not thinking of what you're saying. They're thinking about stuff that they need to do. So,
sure.
It's kind of cool. I mean, you just need to learn how to read it, read certain people. And once you get past that, then you know when to talk to them and when not to talk to them. So it's really easy once you know.
Right. And true music fans, that's what they want when their favorite performers on the stage. They want them in the zone. They don't want them phoning in the hits or everything. They want it to see they want to hear it like it's a brand new song that they're already familiar with.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they want to hear the song that sounds like it was on the album.
Sure.
And if you go up to them at the beginning of the show, before the show, and say, whatever, happened in the world, there was a flood and 5 million people lost their lives. Well, now they're going to be focused on the 5 million people that lost their lives and not the show, which has nothing to do with you because it was over in wherever, on the other side of the planet.
Right.
And it has nothing to do with you or the show, but now they're focused on that. And it could ruin the show. So I understand why they really kind of ignore people before the shows. So it's understandable.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, explaining it like that, I think most people wouldn't get that. That's good that we can maybe get that word out there. Like, don't bother the star before the show.
Yeah. I mean, if you meet Vince Neil in the mall, shot at the Gap, he's going to be a completely different person than if you catch him 5 minutes before the concert.
Absolutely.
So it's, whatever. I mean, a lot of these guys, not so much anymore, but back in the day, they would drink or do drugs right before the show. So they're not even there mentally anyway.
Right.
But you catch them in the mall, Vince Neil and I, at the mall in Torrance, California, and he's a completely different person. He's just a regular person, but you catch him before the show and he's kind of a jerk, It's just the way it is.
So I guess your grandfather and your dad were both photographers?
My grandfather was a famous photographer in Manhattan, New York, took pictures of a lot of famous people for, 40 years or something like that. And then my stepdad, who is I call my dad, adopted me when I was 3 years old. And he was an aerial photographer he was a pilot too, and took pictures of, stuff from the air. So it was kind of cool. So, and then my mom also takes pictures. I wouldn't call her a professional photographer, but she took pictures, and I've always been around it. I mean, it's not something that was completely out of focus for me, but I never really paid any attention to it because I was a kid,
right.
And your parents are like, you should be a photographer. I was like, I'm going to be a rock star, and you don't really pay attention to it until you get a camera in your hand and you take a picture of somebody and everybody goes, oh my God, how did you take that picture? It's like, I have no idea. So people now, other photographers ask me, can you teach me how to do lighting? Can you teach me how to do pictures like you? And it's not really something that I can teach. I mean, if it was, I would, but it's not really something that's in the forefront of my head where I got to put this light over here and that light over there, and I got to do this and that and the other thing. And that's the way it's done. It's not like that. It's just kind of an intuition, I guess, of, what's the person wearing? What kind of shoot are we doing? Is it a romantic portrait or is it a Vogue, straight up bright lights, and big makeup and stuff like that? Or, is it a kid? Is it a rock star? Is it, what's going on. And the rock stars taking pictures of people on stage. I've taken pictures of people on stage many, many times. And people always ask me, how did you get that picture? Well, I'm not paying attention to the show. I couldn't tell you what the show sounded like because I'm not listening. I'm paying attention to lights. I'm paying attention to the song. I'm paying attention to the guitar solos or the bass or the drums. Not usually the drums because they're way back there. I can't get pictures of them. But the singer, what are they all doing? Are they taking a breath? Or are they in the middle of saying something where their mouth is going to look weird? Are the lights that are moving around, are they going to blind me? Are they going to add to the picture? Are they going to take it away? Are they going to be in the background? Are they going to light the subject up? And you have to pay attention to all that at one time. It's kind of like doing a motorcycle race. You got to do everything at once. And then you'll be able to find your groove. It's a lot of fun, but now it's not something that I really think of. It's not, you know what I mean? It's not something in the forefront of my head. It's just something that I just pay attention to and do. It's not a conscious, programmed, thought.
Yeah. And probably having done it for so long too, you probably hone your craft, like where what situations aren't going to work as well. And
right.
It was interesting that you had brought that up because I had worked with a gentleman who was a photographer, and I was amazed that he could take these candid photos that looked like they were posed, but it was just it was just two people talking. Like everybody's in like the right spot, and the lighting is perfect, and you're really like further supporting that argument that it's just an instinct that boom, here we go, taking the picture now. You're just thinking on your toes the whole time.
Yep. There are pictures that I've taken of Elton John where it looks like he's posing for me on the piano, and Steve Harris. It looks like he's posing for me with the bass. That has happened quite a bit where musicians are on stage and they're doing their thing and they're jumping around and running around. And I click this picture and it looks like, oh, hey, Ed, let me pose for you. Yeah, okay. Get the picture back. It's like, is that Elton John looking right at you while he's hugging the guitar, the piano? Yeah. Was that staged? No, he was in the middle of a song, but it happens to look that way. So one of my friends is Jeffrey Morgan, who used to write for Cream Magazine. If you remember Cream Magazine, he was a reviewer and a photographer for Cream Magazine for decades. And some of the shots of Elton John particularly, he likes because it looks like, oh yeah, Elton, okay, go up there and put your hand on the piano and look real sad. And, I'll take your picture. And it looks like, yeah, me and Elton are just hanging out, and just talking about stupid shit. And I had him do something and I just took a picture. So, he laughs at it. It's like, it looks like it's posed. I said, no, it's right in the middle of the show. But it was kind of funny.
I was wondering if you could explain like the process. Do the record labels hire you? Do the bands hire you? How do you get involved with being there for those shots?
A lot of people ask me that. A lot of people ask me how they can get photo passes. And to be frankly honest, we as photographers, as rock photographers, we don't usually talk about how to get photography passes.
Okay.
Because we don't want 5 million people out there trying to get photography passes. But in my case, it's a lot of who and because I've been doing this for a long time, I know a lot of people and I call them up and say, hey, can I shoot the show? And they're like, oh yeah, man, do it. So, it's that kind of thing, whether I know the bands or the PR people or the managers, the tour managers and things like that. I usually know someone in that regard, and I just call them and ask them.
Right.
But as far as other people go, there's a lot of gatekeepers that you have to get through. It's not just the tour manager, it's the PR people and the managers and the tour managers and the band itself. And you have to get through all of them, including the venue gatekeeper, to be able to get photo passes. So it's not Joe Blow off the street wants to take pictures, with his brand new camera that he just got it's not something that's going to happen. It's a progression, and you really have to probably take a lot of pictures of local bands and hone your skill and do that and get well known by doing local bands first, and then you can kind of graduate up into that kind of a thing, because the local bands, some of them are going to make it. I mean, not many of them, but some of them are going to make it, or they're attached to somebody, or they're going to change bands and they're going to remember you, that, you shot them, for 5 years for free. And now they're in this super group for some unknown reason. And, you call them up and say, hey, Bill, you remember me? Oh, yeah. Hey, can I shoot the show tonight? Absolutely, man. Come on by. So it's kind of like that. You just start off slow.
Yeah. And at this point, I mean, you probably just got such a network with, the whole music industry that, it's always going to be easier for you than it is some brand new kid photographer.
Yeah, if somebody stole my phone, I'd be completely lost, because it's got everybody's phone numbers in there, and it's usually under, whatever name I throw out there, but I know who it is. It's Jim. It's like Jim. It's Jim. I'm not going to tell you who Jim is. It's it's kind of
right.
fun.
Ziggy McFarlane could be Roger Daltrey. It's like
That's
right. That.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Right. Yep. So it's like, I know who they are. But if you picked up the phone and looked at it, you would be like, yeah, I have no clue who these people are. So it's kind of funny. You'd have to go through and call each individual person. Hey, this was Ed's phone. Who's this? Oh, Eddie Van Halen. Oh yeah. Hey, how's it going? Stuff like that. We can't talk to Eddie Van Halen anymore, but
that might be a little tricky.
That'd be a little tricky. Be a really long distance phone call.
Do you have a couple of favorite encounters from the folks that you have met and that you've spoken with?
I do. Steven Tyler is number one, because he was my absolute hero when I was younger. And, Aerosmith has kind of given me the soundtrack to my life, just like many other people. So Steven Tyler was really big on my list. Elton John, I'm not a real big Elton John. Sorry, Elton. But, I'm not a huge, big Elton John fan, but I listened to 5 or 6 of his songs just like everybody else. And I loved talking to him and shooting his show. That was great. And the other one is Buddy Guy. If you know who he is.
Blues guitarist.
Absolutely fantastic guy. And I kind of invited myself to have Thanksgiving dinner at his house. So I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but I thought he was just a fantastic guy, real friendly, very nice, very honest, and really nice guy. The other ones are Steve Vai. Frank Zappa introduced me to Steve Vai. And Steve and I got along really well, and I brought my son to go see Steve at a sound check in Salt Lake one time. He's really nice, good to get along with. Phil Lewis from LA Guns is one of my friends. Him and I, outside of music, we're friends, and he's just a great guy. He's actually got a new album out, so everybody check his new album out. LA Guns' new album. And they're going on tour recently. So there's your plug for LA Guns, Phil. So I took care of my friend Phil. The other people are, Hart, Roger Fisher. I like him. He's a friend of mine. God, I got to look back on my wall here. Slash is a really great guy. Joe Satriani is a great guy. The guys from Iron Maiden, Alice Cooper is fantastic. Really, really, really super guy. Dweezil Zappa. Let's see, Roger Daltrey. And it was really funny. I got so many names in my head right now, I can't even think of
the folks can't see the video. I mean, there is literally a wall of photographs behind it.
Yeah, it goes here. I'll show you. It goes all the way. It goes all over the place. So
there are at least like 50 that I can see right now within the view of my zoo, and I'm he's got even more than that.
Oh yeah. These are just 8x10s that I put on the wall. So if you could see it, I'm really OCD about it. So they're all spaced exactly the same on the wall, and all have the same frame and the same mat, and it's my thing, I guess. I don't know, but all these guys, I don't think that I've met. I have met one, and I'm not going to mention who it was, but it was a female. I just did not like her at all, just not at all. But she's really the only one. Everybody else has been really cool, really nice. I've never had any problems. The problems that I have run into are the goon squads that are in the photo pit. You're only supposed to shoot 3 songs nowadays. So you get the first 3 songs. And then usually I don't worry about putting my camera in my camera bag. I just sit there and enjoy the show. And the goons will think, oh, you're still taking pictures after the 3rd song. No, I just happen to have my camera around my neck. But, all the other guys are putting it in their camera bag, and I'm trying to enjoy the show, and I'm not thinking about it. And like Alice Cooper, the last time I shot Alice Cooper, one of his goons came up and, you can't shoot after the 3rd song. I'm like, I'm not. I just happen to have the camera around my neck. So, but yeah, I have a great time. It's a great time. And all the audience members are great. I always have fun. Some of the guys at Elton John were a little upset because they're paying $5,000 or $10,000 a ticket, and I'm standing in front of them, in front of their first row, and then there's me, and then there's Elton. So it's they're not too happy, and I'm like, I have a job. This is my job. I'm not going to be in front of you the whole show. I'm going to be moving around and stuff like that. So very rarely anybody says anything. The bands are always great. The venues are always great. The people in the audience are always great, and usually have a lot of fun. So, yeah.
So given the list of people that you have photographed, are there any that that are like your white whales that you haven't done yet, or maybe some that you wish you would have done if maybe they're no longer with us?
I did shoot Eddie Van Halen at the US Festival. Shot Van Halen at the US Festival, and those pictures are gone. Who knows where the hell those pictures are? But I would have liked to have shot him at a show, but I had no idea that, just like the rest of us, we didn't have any idea that he was going to pass so soon. Mm-hmm. And it really wasn't in the forefront of my head. Ozzy Osbourne, I shot at the US Festival and one other concert. And he was actually at a girlfriend's house one time when I went over to her house with her parents, and they were sitting there talking about tennis in the kitchen. So I would like to shoot him, but I wouldn't like to shoot them in concerts as much as I would like to say, Ozzy, can I come to the house and do your portrait? And just have you sitting on the sofa, man, just sitting there doing whatever, and, take some pictures. I would enjoy that a lot more than, going to a show. I'm not going to say no to a show, but, I would rather do that. Jimmy Page, hell, I'll fly to England. You give me an hour to take your picture for 20 minutes. I'll fly to England, as long as it takes, and fly back the next day, whatever it takes, man. So it's, that kind of thing. Robert Plant, I want to shoot Robert Plant. David Gilmour, I'd like to shoot. Pretty much everybody else I've done. So
they're all checked off already.
Yeah, there are some favorites that I would like to shoot again, but like I said, I would rather go and shoot them in my studio or at the house, lounging around in the pool, or at the on the sofa, or I don't care, cooking eggs on the freaking stove. I don't care. I just take their picture. So I would rather do that, but we'll see what happens in the future.
You've said that before we were recording that St. Vitus is basically your creation, where the artists can get their pictures on the cover of a magazine. But you've had pictures of yours that have been on the cover of other magazines. What does that feel like when you're like walking past a newsstand and you're like, hey, I took that picture?
Yeah, that's pretty special. That's pretty special. Yeah, you go on vacation and, you look down and there's a magazine with your picture that you took on the cover. And it's like, oh my God, and the girl behind the counter is like, do you know who this is? That, I took the picture. And they're like, yeah, who cares? I don't even know who that is. I listen to Eminem and, whoever the rappers are of the day, they could care less, but it's just really kind of cool to walk in somewhere and see your pictures on the cover of something. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's, I think 70 million viewers to my work so far in this past year and 170 magazines in this past year. So yeah. But it's quite a bit. So it's kind of busy.
You definitely got it out there, Ed.
Yeah, I'm definitely out there. So it's kind of funny because people don't know photographers. I mean, you see pictures and you're like, oh my God, that's a great picture. And, when I was a kid, you'd cut it out of the magazine and put it on the wall. Who the hell knows who these people are? Neil Zlazauer was a famous rock photographer in the 70s who I've spoken to several times. And he's an okay guy. He's not everybody's cup of tea, but he's a nice guy. And he was a famous photographer. And I never knew his name. And I had pictures of his stuff all over my walls when I was a kid, and just by chance, there's a photographer named Ed Culver, Colver. And he was a famous punk photographer during the 80s and late 70s, 80s, and 90s. And he took concert pictures. And my stepfather's name, my dad, his name is Wayne Culver. And just by chance, I found him and said, hey, has anybody called you asking for me? And he's like, actually, yeah, there was this one person that called him. I'm like, what do you do? And I started talking to him. I'm like, what do you do? And he says, oh, I take pictures of punk bands. And I'm like, seriously? I take pictures of rock bands. And him and I became friends. So it's kind of cool, and you call over there to his house and Jello from Dead Kennedy is sitting in his living room, and they're talking and I can't talk, Jello's here. And I'm like, Jello? Who the hell is Jello? So, okay, whatever. And, I've had friends, Jimmy Webb, who owned I Need More clothing store in New York City. And him and I were friends. And, Duck Hagen and Slash would always go there. And I called over there one day, and I'm not going to remember the guy's name because I'm really horrible at names. The guy that plays Obi-Wan Kenobi in the new Star Wars movies.
Oh, Ewan McGregor.
Ewan McGregor answered the phone. And I was like, is Jimmy there? He says, yeah, he's with a customer. Can you hang on? I said, yeah, who is this? And he goes, Ewan McGregor. And I'm like, and it still didn't faze me who it was. And then he started talking. I'm like, I kind of know that voice, man. And he just kind of laughed. And Obi-Wan Kenobi. I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. What are you doing answering the phone?
You think you'd have a droid answer the phone for him or something like that, right?
This is not the person you're looking for. It's kind of funny. But yeah, I mean, it's just kind of like that. And I've told people, I've been involved in movies and music for so long. And I think there's some kind of magnetism to me that, invites those kind of people into my life in some way or another. It's just always been around. I don't think it's luck. I think it's something else. It's some kind of weird magnetism that happens. And I'll be walking down the mall, like I was telling you before. You're walking down the mall and all of a sudden you're standing next to Vince Neil and you're like, hey, Vince, what are you doing? It's just kind of weird. I mean, that just doesn't happen. You're walking through, Hollywood and here's Steven Tyler walking next to you and you're like, hey, Steven, you remember me from Compton Terrace? Oh yeah. What are you doing? How's it going? So it's just kind of strange how those things happen. So, it happens quite a lot. And I'm not surprised anymore when it does happen. It's just something that happens a lot. So, But yeah, the studio that I've got now, St. Vitus, I shoot actors and actresses and models and musicians. And I've just started taking pictures of kids. And it's not something that I wanted to do, but I have special requests. And they say, you know, my son or my daughter is an actor or an actress. Can you take their picture for them? And I'm like, nah, I don't really want to do kids, you know, because they're a pain in the ass. They're always, you can't get them to pay attention. And, no, my daughter's perfect and she's all right and she'll be good. It's okay. If you're paying me, yeah, show up, whatever. And they show up, and usually so far I've been lucky, knock on wood, that all the kids have been really nice and focused, and they're not bouncing off the walls, and it's a lot of fun. And it's funny with the kids, when the kids show up, I say, you know that part when you meet somebody and you're all shy and you don't really know, you know, if this person's a good person or a bad person. And then, you know, 2 weeks down the road, you're like, oh yeah, that's Ed, the photographer, you know. And I say, they're like, yeah, I know that feeling. And I'm like, can we just skip the whole I don't know this guy thing and just go to the friends? Because the pictures are going to come out a lot better. And every single time I say that, the kids are like, oh yeah. And we end up having a great time. So it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
As we were saying before we were recording, a person could get lost on your website because there's just so much incredible photography going on, not with just the musicians, but even with the models and the other people, and just the art, the photo, you know, that you've just captured so well.
Yeah.
You know, what's the best advice you would give to a photographer? I know you said you can't really train somebody, but what's like a good thing for them to learn to run on?
Learn your camera.
Okay.
You know, learn how to operate your camera is number one. Number two is research. You know, look up other photographs and find out where the lighting is and how the pictures were taken and how they were framed, and you know, different things like that, and just learn it just like a craft, like you would learn anything else. Mm-hmm. You know, study it. And you'll get there eventually. So, but learning your camera is number one.
You don't need to be doing that. What does this button do?
That's right.
At the very last second.
And it's funny. Sometimes I still touch a button. I'm like, what the hell what happened? You know, like, how do I get that off there? You know, so
happens to the best of them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So you created a book of photography as well.
I did. This is my second book. I just came out with my second book. It's called Eye of the Beholder. It's 300 pages of glossy 8.5 by 11 hardback book. It eventually will be available, hopefully, on Amazon. But right now I'm taking pre-orders, and it's $120. But it is 300 pages of my best work that I've had over the last 3 years.
Yeah, and full page photos too.
Full page photos, except for one page, which is split, but the rest of them are all full page photos. Yep. They're all high end, glossy, 80-pound pages. So it's pretty good. You know, it's well done, and those are available now. If you go to my website, and you can get in touch with me and order one of those books through me. And I'll autograph it and send it to you.
There you go. Yeah. You can't beat that. So let everybody know what the name of your website is.
The website is Edward Dose Photography, and it's all one word. It's EDWARD DOSE Photography. And it's just, you'll see it pop up. And that's me. And if you don't see my picture somewhere on there, then it's somebody else, but you'll know it right away if it's me.
And you're also on Instagram too. Do you feature some of your work there too?
I am on Instagram, and I post a lot of my stuff on Instagram, and my Instagram handle or name or whatever it is DOSE.photo. So that's the Instagram thing. And then you can get through to me through Facebook, through the Instagram, or my webpage, either one. But I really don't remember what my Facebook page is called. I think I do everything on my personal Facebook thing. So it's just Edward Dose on Facebook. But the Instagram is dose.photo. And then the webpage is edwarddosephotography.com. Yeah.
There you have it. So before I let you go, whoever Billy Macadoodle is on your phone, tell him that the Sherpa said hello.
I will. I'll call everybody right now.
His name is Edward Dose. Again, edwarddosephotography.com. And if you do /St. Vitus, you can also see the magazine covers as well. But the site is just amazing, Rebels. If you are a lover of classic rock and photography and just the art of it too, this is a website you got to be checking out. So Ed, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you very much for asking me. I appreciate it. And I had a great time.
Let's get back to the Sherpa. Sorry about that.
No. Thank you so much, Ed Dose, for coming on down to the Sherpa Screening Room. And I advise all you Rebels to check out his website. There is some incredible photography there. If you're a fan of classic rock or classic photography, that's the place you want to go. And you know where else you should go? Sherpalution.com. That is the website where you can hear every episode of this podcast from the beginning till this one you are listening right now and beyond. And Sherpalution is also very important if you want to follow me on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I'm there all the time. Well, most of the time. Some of the time, somebody slaps me across the face and says, "Wake up, Sherpa." There is somebody messaging you. And if you get the chance, if you could leave a nice review for this podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, it would be greatly appreciated, and let people know about the Sherpalution. You can even share these episodes on your social media pages if you are so inclined to. And speaking about wonderful reviews, I don't really talk about a lot of personal stuff, but this involves some people who definitely deserve a huge round of applause. So let me tell you something. A little while back, I was having some serious problems with my vision, and it turns out that I had really bad cataracts, and I was having a lot of difficulty seeing. So I went to see my eye doctor and actually had cataract surgery, and I'm good. So a very special shout out to Dr. Faye Knoll and all the staff at the SiteMD offices and the surgical centers who really did an incredible job for helping me get through the process. She is definitely a skilled and talented surgeon and super nice doctor too, by the way. And the office is full of very caring professional folks. I got to know some of them. I don't know all of their names. Special shout out to Brian, and a very special shout out to Delilah, who helped get things moving along for us when it came to the eye drops. You got to take a lot of eye drops, folks. Also, while I'm talking about eyes, wouldn't she be a fun guest to have on here? Get to know about the workings of the human eye. Really cool. And somebody who does surgery on it yet. Ooh. Just putting it out there, Rebels. Just putting it out there. Thank you, Dr. Knoll, and everybody there. SiteMD, we salute you. Here at Mount Podcast. Yeah. How did I get there? I took the Sherpa helicopter, of course, the private one. So now my cataracts are gone, by the way, and I can see through walls. That's correct, Rebels. I can see through walls, as long as there are windows there that I can look out of. I'm not a superhero now or anything like that, or at least I wouldn't admit it on this podcast. Okay, so we are out of here, folks, and be sure to check out our show next Wednesday, where the new episode will debut. And be good to your eyes, because they're being good to you, right? And if you've got problems, be sure you see your eye doctor. Take care of them, and take care of yourselves, Rebels. Till then, viva la Sitealution. Viva la Sherpalution. See you guys next time.
Thanks for listening to the Sherpa Screening Room. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, review, and share this podcast. I'm Mr. Bruce, and this has been a Sherpalu Studios production. Viva la Sherpalution!